Okay, so yeah, we have four speakers hosting our event today: Bridgette O'Neill, Sarah Millband, Christina Shennan, and Phoebe Roman. If you'd like to give us a wave, the four of you, lovely. Thank you so much for doing that. And let me just give you a brief overview. So Bridgette, Senior Lecturer at the Centre of Mindfulness Research and Practice at Bangor University, also actually a member of our EDI Advisory Board. Thank you for your work that you're doing with us there, Bridgette, with Bangor. We really appreciate your time and your support. Bridgette's also the co-author of the journal of article Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction for Our Time, a curriculum that is up to the task and is motivated to understand what kind of mindfulness and compassion practices are needed to support us with the challenges of our time. Then we have Sarah Millband, a psychotherapist, mindfulness teacher, trainer and supervisor, teaches mindfulness within the NHS for patients, medical students and clinical staff, and in the voluntary sector for staff and volunteers, for carers through social prescribing partnerships. Brilliant work. Thank you for that. Sarah lives in South Wales. Christina, tutor for the Masters in Mindfulness-Based Approaches at the Centre of Mindfulness Research and Practices, again at Bangor, teaches the Mindful Self-Care programme for the university and works as a psychotherapist, mindfulness teacher, psychological services in the NHS and in the oncology field. And Christina has very extensive experience to supporting staff and carers, especially in the oncology field, and leads mindfulness-based workshops for health professionals. And then finally, last but not least, Phoebe Roman, and hello to you and thank you for being here too. Has worked in the NHS secondary mental health care services since 1989. What an achievement. And leads mindfulness in dialectical behaviour therapy module at Bangor University, and is a teacher and supervisor of mindfulness-based courses. Has extensive experience of supporting staff in the NHS, including through mindfulness-based programmes. So yeah, thank you, all four of you, so much for being here. What an event, so well attended. And I'm going to hand over to you now for you to take the floor and take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Steph, for your warm welcome. Yeah, welcome to everybody. So yeah, we're here to explore this new curriculum, high stress, time pressured environments, and perhaps to just open up the possibility that even in these kind of settings where maybe our own well-being is bottom of the list or perhaps not even on the list, some small moments of mindfulness can really make a difference. So why don't we begin with a couple of moments of mindfulness? So yeah, inviting you to kind of settle into your sitting posture, knowing that we're probably some of us at our workstations, these places where we spend quite a lot of time. So in whatever way feels right for you, kind of just adjusting your posture so that you get a really good sense of contact and connection. Contact of the body with the seat, with the floor. Maybe just tuning into an anchor point that feels alive for you. Somewhere that's just quite accessible. And then just gently noticing as you're pausing whether there are any places in the body that perhaps are just letting you know that they might need a little extra care. Maybe the shoulders are a bit tight. Perhaps there's tension in the forehead. Maybe some other place where the body is letting you know something. And then just seeing if it's possible to bring some warmth, some friendliness, some care to this place. You might want to just send a warm and friendly breath, keeping that sensation company, letting it know it's welcome. You might also want to place a hand on the belly or some other place that perhaps just helps you feel into that possibility of bringing warmth and kindness to yourself in this moment. As this little brief practice is coming to a close, perhaps, yeah, just opening to the possibility that this connection to the body, this connection to kindness, could continue to be available to you even as we move into the contents of our time together in this next hour. We're intending to introduce you in a very light touch way to the Mindful Self-Care course. It was developed by Dr. Maura Kenny, who trained back in the day with Mark Williams and now lives in Australia. We'll give kind of key considerations when delivering this kind of program in a workplace setting. And then, yeah, we'll touch in a very light way with a kind of theoretical framework that underpins the course, as well as saying a bit about its aims and intentions, some of the challenges and some of the gifts. So I'm going to hand over to Bridgette for the next bit.
Thanks so much, Sarah, for guiding that practice. Really appreciated that. And to Steph and everybody, it's really lovely to be here. So I'm going to say a little bit about what we know, both from research and from our own experience of offering mindfulness into high stress, time-pressured environments. Yeah, I'll use a few slides, so I'll start there. I'll share my screen just now. So yeah, we could also say high-pressured, fast-paced workplaces. So Maura first designed this to be offered in healthcare, so that's one of those settings, but also it's been offered in social care, teaching, in the legal professions, and in different third sector settings. So environments where there is, as it says, a lot of pressure, a lot of demands, and a need often to respond rapidly. What do we know about offering mindfulness-based approaches? Starting with what we know about the established evidence base for programs such as mindfulness-based stress reduction, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. There's a robust evidence base that shows that they're effective in reducing stress and also increasing different elements of well-being. So much so that in relation to the workplace, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence has introduced as recommendations since 2022 that all employers should enable employees to be able to access mindfulness amongst other well-being approaches to support well-being at work. So that's good news. There's a strong evidence base and there's a recommendation as well, at least in the UK. And if we think about those established programs, MBSR and MBCT, and these high stress, time pressured environments, a major challenge is actually the time commitment. And I'm sure many people will be familiar with that. The challenge of actually organizations feeling they can free up their staff to attend for 2 or 2.5 hours a week for 8 weeks. And for individuals to feel able to take that time and also to be practicing at home. This is one of the major challenges. And evidence does suggest that in those high stress, time pressured environments, that there is higher dropout rates from those established programs. What else we know about these environments is that actually a certain level of stress is inevitable and can be functional. You know, when people are having to manage at times multiple demands and to respond really rapidly, actually the stress system can support us to really be present and show up in a way that enables managing those kinds of pressures and really focusing on what needs to be done. But what can happen is that actually people become really habituated to being within that mode of mind. So even when they even when there's a possibility of resting, the stress system is still very activated, and that mode of being completely on, being goal oriented and having a narrow focus continues. And of course that has an impact. One impact is that it's much harder when we're habitually in that mode to be in connection with what's happening for ourselves, even to notice that we are in that mode. And we can get disconnected from our broader values, what's really important for us. And even to those small moments actually which are enjoyable and that we appreciate in our work lives. And longer term, this can really lead to exhaustion, certainly a feeling of disconnect, if not cynicism, with the work that we're doing, and a feeling of being ineffective. So this kind of definition of burnout. So those are the kinds of risks in these very high-pressured, fast-paced environments that, may well feel familiar for many of us here. And we know that mindfulness really, it supports this quality of presence, which enables us to be more in connection, to notice what's happening for ourselves, and at their best for mindfulness-based programs to support us to be living in keeping with what really matters to us. So there's a case here for offering an adapted form of mindfulness-based program, which is what the Mindful Self-Care program is. And we could say that an intention in offering a mindfulness-based approach in such an environment is to support people, as Sarah was saying, to find space even amongst the multiple demands, the need for responding really rapidly. So we could use this analogy of finding space in tight corners. And for a program to enable that in these time-pressured environments, it needs to be really concise and clear. So we're going to have less time than MBSR and MBCT to really give people the taste of a possibility of how we might step out of that kind of mode, how we might nourish ourselves, how we might understand what's happening in our systems and navigate the experience of stress in ways that support our well-being and resilience more. And an important part of that to enable us to reconnect actually with our inspiration for doing the work and these opportunities within every day actually of building well-being and turning towards what might nourish us. So the Mindful Self-Care program is a program that's designed with this in mind. And so if we are going to offer a mindfulness-based program into a setting that is very time pressured, where there is high demands on people, there's a kind of ethical need to ensure that actually it is helpful for people. If we're going to ask people to put time into it, then we need to build the evidence to show that it is effective. And this is what Maura has done from the outset. So being informed, first of all, by the evidence in designing the program, and then from the beginning, using questionnaires, both before and after the course, asking participants to fill out questionnaires before and after the course, using standardized measures of things like stress, anxiety, depression, but also well-being, levels of mindfulness and compassion. And alongside those kind of standardized measures, also asking open questions to hear back from people. What was their experience? What felt most supportive? What might have been the barriers or challenges? So that the program can be fine-tuned and developed in a way that really meets people where they are and serves them with what's going to be supportive in that particular environment. So we wanted to share this just to have a sense of how to go about building the evidence. And another important element for us has been to collaborate with others. And again, Maura has done this from the beginning. So in Australia, she ran a number of courses and gathered the evidence, which showed that the program is helpful in reducing stress and increasing compassion. And then offering it in the UK, offered a teacher training, and we've continued to work with others across the UK who are also offering the programme, so that we can come together and gather evidence across a broad number of courses, which again informs or builds the case. It shows that the evidence shows the strength of the evidence, and also informs any kinds of tweaks that may lead the programme to be even more helpful. So I'm going to hand now. I can see somebody's hand up, but I'm going to hand now. We'll have time for questions. So Sarah, who's going to say a little bit about one of these kinds of models that underpins the programme, that helps people actually understand what's happening for them and how they might navigate that. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah now.
Thanks, Bridgette. And yeah, feel free to move the slides on if you would like to. That's fab. Yeah, so this little model might be familiar to you. You might have come across it before. It's often referred to as the 3 emotion regulation systems, originally developed by Paul Gilbert. And whenever I look at this, I'm immediately drawn to that red bit that's talking about the threat system. Yeah, and maybe that's also familiar to you too. So this system in the body that's kind of alerting us to danger, it's connected to our fight, flight, freeze, that kind of inbuilt mechanism. And yeah, it's often connected in some way to survival, and it's sort of showing us what we don't want. And what this often means in a high-pressured workplace is not wanting to show vulnerability, not wanting to make a mistake, not wanting to appear incompetent. So we can see in those little examples that, you know, quite a lot of that sense of threat in a way is being generated internally, kind of not wanting the experience of stress itself. And then, of course, we've got our drive system, which is, yeah, much more about what we do want. So kind of seeking resources, seeking reward, and yeah, how that might sort of express itself in the workplace is kind of, yeah, really wanting to do a good job, wanting to make a difference, wanting to be there for other people. And in these high-pressured work environments, what's often happening is we're sort of shuttling backwards and forwards between the threat and drive systems. Sort of really wanting to acknowledge that in high-stress environments, we're often really praised for, you know, having a strong sense of drive, wanting to get things done, wanting to achieve things, wanting to reduce waiting lists, see more people. So there's often something in the kind of culture of the organization that's really supporting and valuing the drive system. And of course, what can sometimes happen is that, yeah, things get a little bit out of balance, and maybe we forget about the importance of the soothing system. So this system in the body that's, yeah, it's all about connection, it's all about safeness. And it sort of has a sort of felt sense of calmness and connectedness, contentment. And it opens up the possibility of kind of holding vulnerability with kindness, holding our own vulnerability with kindness. And maybe also something about, yeah, in a way, being more there for ourselves, especially in these workplace settings where there's such an emphasis on being there for other people. So, of course, we need all 3 of these systems, and we need them to be in some sort of balance. And one of the very particular ways that we explore this in the Mindful Self-Care course is a practice that is really intended to help us connect with what sort of soothing does my body really want and need? what would be soothing for my body, and sort of recognizing, you know, for some of us that might be slowing down and having a warm bath. For others, it might be that we need to move vigorously. We need to kind of, in some way, discharge some of the energy that we might be holding in the body. So an exploration around the soothing system forms a really central part of the course. And, you know, my experience of teaching the course is that there's often something really powerful that opens up here. People start to recognize how much of the time they are oscillating between threat and drive. And then this experiential exploration of, yeah, what would be soothing for my body, opening up other possibilities. And of course, some part of that involves recognizing how some of our habitual ways of soothing might not necessarily be that wholesome for us. You know, maybe coming home and watching one of your favorite TV shows might be a chance for a bit of a relaxation and a reset, but watching 6 of them and then falling into bed, like maybe less soothing, maybe less nourishing. So we're practicing intentionally exploring soothing in the body. And yeah, what that's led to is a sort of realization for people, just like Bridgette was saying, about how much of that energy of the fast-paced work environment we're carrying with us into life outside of work. That sort of sense of like having built up all that speed and momentum and either not knowing how to stop or sort of crashing into a heap at the end of the day and really not having very much sense of what would be nourishing or replenishing or restoring. So this particular inquiry has really allowed, more of a sense of the possibility of self-care, more sort of space for relaxation, but it's also helped connect people to their values, what's important. And some of that relates to workplace, but also values outside of work, like connection with friends, with family, with the natural environment. And, you know, some people by sort of the middle of the course were also opening up to the possibility of having a bit more fun. In one of the courses that I taught recently, which was in the third sector to an organisation working with refugees and asylum seekers, one of the young women on the course, she wrote some feedback afterwards and she said, I've slowly started introducing the practices. It's so great to take just 5 minutes rather than rushing through my life as I was taught to. I'm definitely stopping that workplace, cultural, intergenerational cycle of rushing. I'm breaking that cycle just one breath at a time. So Bridgette, you might want to pop us on to the next slide, which in a way is just a kind of summary of what I've just been saying. Yeah, the program really supporting this deep recognition of the need for balance across these 3 systems. And when we have a lot of threat, we maybe have less drive, and soothing is tiny in our lives. If we have a lot of drive, threat is obviously less and less soothing. So we're really encouraging this much more of a kind of healthy focus on what is soothing, what is nourishing, what is replenishing, so that there's more of a sense of balance across these 3 systems. And like I say, my experience of teaching the program is this very simple model really opens up a new way of seeing. So sowing a seed for some new possibilities. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Phoebe now, who's going to guide us in one of the sort of core practices of the Mindful Self-Care course.
Thank you, Sarah. So yeah, within the course, within the MSCP course, we introduce a variety of short practices. And around session 3, we introduce some simple movements into our practice. So I'm going to invite you to join me in a short practice now. We're going to keep in a sitting posture, but you might like to just move your chair a little away from your desk or table, just so you've got enough room to stretch your arms out. So when you're ready, let's just bring our awareness to our posture, inviting our posture to reflect a sense of steadiness and solidity. A posture that will support us arriving in this moment, just as we are. This practice is an invitation for us to connect with our body as it is right now. So bringing awareness to the fact that all of our bodies are different, making sure that we invite a responsiveness to our body, noticing what's needed right now, and using the guidance only in a way that's helpful. So taking a moment to arrive and settle, bringing awareness to the body. And when you're ready, perhaps just letting the arms fall by the sides of the body. And then just gently raising the arms so that they're parallel to the floor. And just taking a moment to hold this posture for a moment or two. We might begin to notice sensations in the shoulders, the upper arms, the elbows, the lower arms, the wrists, the hands, and the fingers. Maybe just taking a moment to connect with the sensations that are present right now. Perhaps becoming aware of a sense of heaviness, a weight. Maybe there's an urge to linger here a while, or sensations of maybe wanting to move the arms. So when you're ready, just gently lowering the arms once more and letting them come to rest. Inviting the arms once again to fall by the sides of the body, inviting the back to be straight but not stiff. And this time we're going to just do some single arm stretches. Perhaps with the right arm, first of all, just gently stretching the arm upwards and just imagining that we're trying to pick a piece of fruit that's just out of reach. Noticing how the body receives this stretch. Perhaps noticing sensations down the arm, maybe noticing sensations down the side of the right hand side of the body. Noticing perhaps how we're relating to this movement. There may be thoughts of, am I doing this right? Am I making a mistake? These thoughts arising perhaps from the inner critic. Perhaps suggesting the early stages of activating our threat system. So bringing a kindly, open curiosity to this stretch, to this movement of the right arm. Gently releasing this stretch as we return our right arm to the side of the body, maybe noticing some sensations of release. And again, perhaps inviting the same movement to the left arm. Just stretching the arm above the head, picking this imaginary piece of fruit that is just out of reach, noticing the resonance of this movement in the body, how the body receives it, and gently returning the arm back to the sides of the body. Noticing any resonance of that movement in the body as a whole. This time we're going to introduce some shoulder rolls. So again, perhaps bringing awareness to our posture, inviting the shoulders to rise, gently squeeze forward, drop, gently move backwards, up, and just gently begin to invite the shoulders to move simultaneously as we invite this circular movement of the shoulders. Noticing perhaps whether in this moment your body is needing this to be a very gentle movement, very small circular movements, or maybe extending the circles a little if that's what's needed right now. Noticing where you feel this movement in the body, maybe around the shoulders or the neck or somewhere else. Changing direction when you're ready. Changing the direction of the movement of the shoulders. And as we do this, being aware perhaps of any tendency or urge to push beyond your limits, possibly signaling activation of the drive system. So reminding ourselves that this practice, we're not trying to get anywhere. We're inviting an attitude of interest and friendliness to our body as it is right now. And gently bringing the shoulders and arms to stillness again when you're ready. And the last movement I'm going to introduce will be to just gently bring some steadiness to the breath as we lower the head, inviting the head to move over towards the left shoulder, very slowly, back to center, and then over towards the right shoulder. Not straining or pushing in any way, really tuning in to the detail of the sensations in the body as we do this. Noticing perhaps any sensations of soothing. Is this movement welcome in the body right now? Noticing how the body responds to this movement and coming back to center once more. Noticing any resonance in the body from having completed that movement. Inviting the body back now to stillness. Perhaps taking a moment to connect with the sense of ground underneath our feet. Becoming aware of the body as a whole as we sit here. And when we're ready, the invitation is going to be to sweep our awareness across the body. So bringing a gentle, invitational, curious awareness as we take a moment to connect with sensations in the head, the face, the neck, the shoulders, arms, wrists, hands, the chest, the abdomen, the back, the hips and pelvis, the upper legs, knees, the lower legs, and the feet. Bringing awareness, sensations in the body. And as we do this, we may have noticed particular areas that we may have experienced a sense of tension or bracing. If it feels okay for you now, just to perhaps invite the spotlight of our awareness onto this area of the body where we're experiencing tension. Bringing a interested, curious awareness to this place on the body, not forcing our attention in any way, perhaps dancing around the outer edges of this place. Being curious to the sensations that are here right now. Knowing that we can always make any micro adjustments to our posture if that would be helpful. Or we may decide to linger there a little while. Perhaps breathing in a sense of interest and curiosity, and breathing out perhaps a sense of ease and release. Experimenting with breathing into this place or towards this place, inviting the breath to travel towards this place, and releasing the breath from this place, inviting a spacious awareness to this place of tension in the body. And then when you're ready, opening our awareness once more towards the body as a whole. Inviting the sense of kindness towards the body, perhaps mirroring this with the breath. Inviting a friendly kindliness towards the body on the in-breath. And perhaps sensations of letting go and release on the out-breath. Maybe taking a moment to acknowledge that we have taken this time to connect with our body, to connect with what's needed with our body right now, bringing a friendly, kindly interest to what's here. Perhaps inviting a responsiveness for us to consider what would be helpful right now. So beginning to end this short practice in your own way. Maybe inviting the body to move and stretch once more before joining the screen again when you're ready. So you may briefly like to, just in chat or speaking a word of something that maybe you noticed. Just maybe one word of what you noticed from the short practice. reminding ourselves there's no right or wrong way about this. Crunchy shoulders, appreciation, a quietness, a stiff neck, drowsiness, tension in the neck, sleepiness, unconditional happiness, a bit of striving, resistance to relax, sleepiness catching up on me, feeling softer afterwards, heaviness, restlessness. So I'm aware, as much as I would love to read all of our responses, I'm aware that we're a little bit limited in time. So maybe we can read the rest of the responses ourselves. But this practice is a way of perhaps just dropping in and connecting with the body as it is right now. And from here, we're in a really helpful place to respond to what's needed. So often, we're only aware of the body when something goes wrong. So this is a way of actually just connecting with the body as it is right now, with a curious awareness and kindness. So thank you so much for participating. And I'm now going to invite Christina to move on to the next part of our workshop today.
Thank you, Phoebe. Thank you, everybody. Our intention is to leave, if we can, a precious 5 minutes at the end for all of your questions. So, so I'm going to whiz through a couple of PowerPoint slides now. So please feel free to drop your questions into chat while I'm doing that, if that feels helpful to you. So thank you, Bridgette. Yeah, so just briefly, to look at the aims or the intentions of the programme and how it meets this complex culture of the workplace. So yes, indeed, the course is about fostering a self-awareness so that people can be more aware of stress. It offers also insight into theoretical models, one of which Sarah described for us beautifully. And then beginning these strategies for self-care, both at work and at home. And that's done in the course in lots of different ways, including the mindfulness practices, one of which Phoebe offered then, which was just lovely to do. We're fostering a kindly attitude towards difficulty, and also the course wants to support participants to renew energy and enjoyment in their work as well as in everyday life. And this last point about seeking help, that's also really important, that the course does offer signposting at the end if people are uncovering that they might need slightly more help than this particular course is offering to them at the present time. So if we move to the next slide, just wanted to say a little bit more about that. So I think it's become really apparent in hearing each of the speakers, and all of you will know this already, that there are a lot of sensitivities, and we could call these potential challenges. But there are sensitivities in the workplace for participants to feel safe, to feel included, especially around vulnerable things such as exploring stress. Some participants may feel really uncomfortable with stillness or reflection. And we are asking potentially participants to become more aware of difficult emotion and more aware of, that self-critical judging voice that we all have. So this is really tender territory that we're entering into and supporting people to enter into. And there's also the perennial challenge of people finding time, for self-care and finding time to engage with mindfulness practices outside of the session. So it's helpful to really, because when we look at that, when we look at the aims of the course and the sensitivities of the course, it sounds like a really big ask for 6 sessions of 75 minutes with all of this complex territory to be offering some of these aims or achieving some of these aims. So it's really important to remember that we have the curriculum, We have the teacher, hopefully, you know, with their own embodiment. And we also have the participants and what they bring to the program. So if we could just go to the next slide. So I'll just touch to this for a moment. So it's not just what is taught, but it's how it's taught. There is actually a speed to the course that might mirror a little bit the speed in the workplace. There is a lot of information in the program, so it's really about pointing towards information, pointing towards things with a really light touch as we're teaching. And because of this, in the teaching and in the style of teaching, if we could call it that, it's really important, or I have found it really important, to spend every so often just pausing, coming back to the body, pausing, coming back to the body, which we sort of do throughout the 75-minute session, whatever the themes of the session are. So we could see the sessions very much as sowing seeds, or participants sowing seeds for themselves in the session, outside the session, and seeing what grows from it. And there is something very moving about the connections that the participants are able to make with each other, which are really supportive. And so there's quite a leaning in, there's not a lot of time for inquiry in the sessions, but there can be a really helpful leaning into inquiry of home practice, also keeping inquiry quite light so people only share what they feel comfortable to share, but really enabling these moments of connection and this fostering of a community, which really helps underpin everything else that we're trying to do. So yes, people really do make very helpful connections within the program. So it's important to find space for that in each of the sessions. There's a lot of humour as well that participants and sometimes the teacher might bring to the sessions, which is also can be really quite helpful. And then if we just look at this last slide for this section anyway. So this is here because just to remind all of us that sometimes there's a real significance in small takeaways from any curriculum. And in this particular curriculum, in week 4, there's a very brief practice called lifting our gaze. So week 4 spends a little time exploring how we renew our energy by what we pay attention to. So the value sometimes of disentangling ourselves from the pressure of work and just connecting, even if very briefly, to a pleasant moment. And there was one particular course participant who's a GP who said that he found this quite life transforming. So he would do this brief practice, which he made his own. He took about 30 seconds to do it, and he would do it in between each patient. So he would, well, let's just do it together, because we'll finish this section here. So maybe just let's do this together, either sitting or standing. So just inviting us to pay attention to our seated position, or we might prefer to stand. And then if we're lucky enough to have a window in the room that we're in, inviting ourselves to gaze out the window. Or if we don't have a window in the room, perhaps there's an object in the room that we might like to rest our attention on, an object we appreciate or value in some way. And then just spend a moment or two sort of just seeing what we see. So this moment just to lift our gaze and look out. Perhaps it's at something in nature or something that's just captured our interest. So just connecting to this moment in this slightly different way. And then just coming back, so back into the body, really connecting back to feet on the floor, a sense of the other people here in the room. And thank you for that. And I don't know, Bridgette, if you want to bring the last slide up, but that's, yeah. So this is yes, so you will all get a copy of these slides and other things. So, but that's when the next self-care at work program is going to be run at Bangor. And I think we do have 6 minutes for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for rounding that part off, Christina. There's a few questions. Let's see what we can get through. So Bob asks, what is the length and number of sessions?
So there are 6 sessions altogether, and each session is 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. Then a slightly bigger question from Jules. Most of my work is in the business sector. Their available time is similarly restricted. Have you designed a shorter taster intro level intervention to attract people to do more?
Certainly, that's a possibility. I'm doing that currently with one work setting. And then the more would be the MSCP course. And even beyond that, it might be if people feel very inspired that they might want to go on and do an MBSR, MBCT.
Yeah.
From Bangor University, yes, we definitely at times offer tasters. Yeah, and it's a helpful way of giving people a little taste before they come along.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Bridgette. There's a tag onto this around if you know of any evidence that people who have regular practice, do they tend to progress? Is there evidence to say that they do progress more quickly up the career ladder?
There's a lot in that, isn't there, in terms of the different elements that might influence how people might progress up the career ladder. I'm not aware of any evidence that looks directly at that myself. I don't know if anybody else in the room might be. But yeah, just struck by the many different elements that will be.
Yeah.
There's general review, isn't there, from the Mindfulness Initiative, the parliamentary group around mindfulness and effectiveness at work, more broadly.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and the recent review of their paper that went live actually quite recently. Some of the evidence in there has been updated around the field books. That could be worth looking at. We've actually just put that onto our website, so it could be worth looking for the link on that under the resources page on Bamba. Does the course recognise participants with ADHD and or autism?
I'm happy to respond to that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Just to say that we have had participants with neurodivergence, and there's something about the shorter practices that can be really helpful. That there are 2 core practices that people learn in the course. Phoebe introduced us to one of them, and then there's also what we might see as a more kind of traditional sitting practice. So those things also, increase accessibility as well as a shorter session in itself.
Yeah, brilliant. Just before I come to Tessa's question, Despina, you had your hand up really early on. Are you okay? Okay, and Alison, I'll come back to you in a second. Thank you. Tessa asks, so there's quite a few bits to this question, but the first part is, when you offer it to workplaces, how do you manage ensuring participation is voluntary, i.e. opt-in, opt-out? Is that a way of doing it, or is it mandated?
No, people are opting to come along.
Yeah. And do you ever run groups where the levels of staffing within the group is different in terms of hierarchy? What's that like? How is that effective or challenging?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So somebody else wants to answer.
Yes, I'm happy to answer that. I think in any workplace group, there's always going to be different levels of hierarchy, and it's really important to note that with the group. And there's something around in the very first session where we're inviting people to come here as human beings and leave their profession at the door, as it were. So we're meeting each other as human beings. So there's something for us to just pay attention to, I think, on that, because it's a really important question, and really important that everyone feels safe within the group. So as a teacher, we do pay attention to that.
Yeah. Thanks, Christina.
And just to follow on from that, just quickly, just to say that the inquiry process is a little bit different to what we might be used to in a longer course.
Yeah.
So that's another way in which we're sort of taking care of, vulnerability around people's sharing their direct experience with someone who they might have a relationship with outside of the course in a professional setting.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Alison, do you want to ask your question? We've got 1 minute.
Okay, very quickly. Is the curriculum published? So can we see it in any way? And what I'm particularly interested in is working with difficulty, and whether that is excluded from this 6-week program, or is it somewhere embedded in there?
So I can answer the curriculum bit, Alison, that working with difficulty is embedded in the curriculum. Oh, you've disappeared now. I can't see where you are. Yeah. And in terms of the curriculum, it's available once you've completed teacher training. At the moment, it's not publicly available. And there were a couple of questions about possibility for training, and maybe if you're interested, you could direct those perhaps to Bridgette. Is that okay, Bridgette?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I just want to, on that point, there's questions that have not been responded to, but I'm wondering if I can reach out and get responses from you on those, and then we can post those somewhere. Sally and I can talk about how we can do that. We are at time, and I can see that people haven't started drifting off, which is unusual. So that just goes to show how much the audience is loving this topic and the presentation and the content and how well it's landed. The training piece is really interesting around, is there training available, and is it to train to teach this out? I think that's a really interesting one. But yeah, you have our commitment at Bamber that we will do everything that we can to try to get the answer to the questions that didn't get raised today, and then circulate those answers around, which is a nudge actually to make sure that you all are aware of the LinkedIn closed group. I know that it's not everybody's thing, social media, but the closed group is for members only, and for those that come to these types of events and networking events. And we will always post elements of things like research, follow-ups from this kind of event, answers to questions that maybe we didn't get the chance to get to. So do look for that. It will be in the upcoming newsletter in the next week or two, and Sally's just posted it in the chat. Look, it doesn't really leave much more time, does it? But just to say to the four of you, massive congratulations. I'm so personally pleased, but also for everybody here that you're able to bring this to life today. For this audience, it has obviously been very well attended, and yeah, just huge congratulations, but a massive warm thank you from us at Bamber for you being here today and presenting such a brilliant program that I'm sure so many people are going to be interested to see where this goes and maybe getting involved in. So yeah, thanks so much. And I would say to everybody that's left here on the screen, follow the Bangor work, because the CMRP page shows this kind of stuff all the time, either on their website, through Facebook. We tend to share a lot of the stuff through the Bamber social media, so you can find a lot of it there. But yeah, follow that work, and I'm sure that you'll see little nuggets of information and research being dropped in from time to time as well that will keep you up to date on how this work's unfolding. So yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for being here, everybody. Well done, and hopefully we'll see you at the AGM later in November. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.